The title of this presentation is The Declaration of the Bab, ushered in the dawn of the global age. The following were among the sources of information consulted for this presentation: God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi, The Appointed Guardian of Baha'i Faith, The Dawn Breakers, Nabil's Narrative, The Bab by Balyuzi, H.M. Balyuzi, The Gate of the Heart by Nader Saidi. PowerPoint slides used throughout this presentation enable incorporation of images, clarification of concepts, and importantly, inclusion of the sources of references and citations that will be used in this talk. This presentation is inspired by the announcement of the Bab of his mission on May 23, 1844, to Mullah Hussein Bushri, a young Shaykhi scholar, the first to believe in him. It centered on the birth of the Babi revelation. The declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. Shoghi Effendi, the appointed guardian of Baha'i Faith, starts his immortal book, God Passes By, with its first chapter named The Birth of the Babi Revelation. The account of the great drama of that declaration starts with these three words, May 23rd, 1844. He continues on to acclaim and extol that significant event that set in motion a divine process. He then transports the reader to the opening scene of that initial act of this sublime drama. In that luminous upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab in the city of Shiraz, wherein took place the birth of the Babi revelation, a room which will forever remain etched upon our minds, hearts, and souls. Of the announcement of the Bab's mission on that night, starting an hour before sunset of May 22nd, 1844, no record has passed to posterity, save a fragmentary but highly illuminating account that fell from the lips of Mullah Hussein Bushri, the one who had set out on his quest for the promised one of Islam. The interview between the Bab and Mullah Hussein extended throughout the night and on to the hour of the dawn of the next day, May 23rd. The Bab was the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the worldwide Baha'i Faith. At this outset, I wish to offer a few introductory words on the Baha'i Faith, the most recent of the world's great religions. The principles and teachings of Baha'i Faith guide and inspire this global age. Baha'i Faith is widely spread across the entire planet, from pole to pole and in all corners of the world, including within its fold members from diverse races, religions, nationalities, and ethnicities. It is a veritable microcosm of humanity, dedicated to the principle of the oneness of humankind. Thus, it is well suited for bringing about the unification and solidarity of the races, ethnicities, religions, and nations on this planet. Among the fundamental principles of Baha'i Faith are independent investigation of truth, harmony of science and religion, elimination of all prejudices, equality of women and men, the oneness of the human race, the recognition of the validity of the major religions of the world, and the dynamic, progressive interrelationship among them. May this presentation, centered on the declaration, the announcement by the Bab of his mission, invigorate those who are committed to the Baha'i Faith. In others, may it inspire interest to investigate the teachings and the claims of this faith, so in tune with our times. In this presentation, I wish to briefly recount some of the salient events associated with that remarkable, awe-inspiring declaration of the Bab, the announcement by the Bab of his mission to Mullah Hussein Boshrui, the very first to believe in him. Intense and passionate search for the promised one of the ages led Mullah Hussein to Shiraz, to that interview with the Bab, which culminated in a declaration by the Bab of his mission. That announcement, that declaration, was the animating spirit, the impetus that ushered in the dawn of a new age, inaugurating the global age. It is noteworthy that concomitant with this event, the very first telegraphic communication using the Morse code was transmitted over distance. The birth of the Babi revelation in 1844 inaugurated a new phase on planet Earth, the declaration of the Bab, May 23rd, 1844. The declaration of the Bab continued on from the hour before sunset of May 22nd into the night and on to the hour of the dawn of the next day, May 23rd, 1844. The announcement of the Bab of his mission was in Shiraz, in the city known for its beautiful gardens, its fragrant roses, the melodious songs of its nightingales, and the verses of its celebrated poets, such as Hafez and Saadi. With that announcement, Shiraz has become immortalized as the city wherein on May 23rd, 1844, the Bab announced his mission. The Bab was the herald to the revelation of Baha'u'llah. The Bab and Baha'u'llah are the twin manifestations of the Babi dispensation. The abundance and irrefutable authenticity of their sacred writings over 48 years, from 1844 to 1892, provide a treasury of divine guidance for our times. For this global age, the term manifestation applies to the prophet founders of the major religions of the world: Zoroaster, Krishna, Buddha, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah. Manifestations provide divine guidance for the needs of the times. Manifestations manifest the qualities of God. Through manifestations, we can connect to God. The Bab was the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of Baha'i Faith. The Baha'i Faith is the latest, the most recent of the world's revealed religions. In line with the founders of the great religions of the world, Baha'u'llah provided guidance for the special needs of our times. For this global age, the declaration of the Bab in 1844 was a prelude to the revelation of Baha'u'llah. The declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844. The setting of that momentous announcement of the Bab to the very first who believed in him was that upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab in an obscure corner of the delightful and idyllic city of Shiraz. The Bab announced his mission at the dawn of a new age. His announcement in that ever memorable room as the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah inaugurated a dynamic process. The announcement of his mission at the dawn of a new age set in motion a process that since has continued on to advance toward global consciousness, toward a global age. The declaration of the Bab of his momentous mission on May 23rd, 1844, began an hour before the sunset of May 22nd and continued through the night to the dawn of May 23rd, 1844. The declaration of the Bab marks at once the inception of the Babi dispensation, the inauguration of the Baha'i era, the commencement of the Baha'i cycle, and the birth of Abdul Baha, the appointed successor to Baha'u'llah, one of the central figures in the Baha'i Faith. At that announcement, the declaration of the Bab's momentous mission on May 23rd, 1844, in the upper chamber of his house in the city of Shiraz, were two participants. The Bab, the announcer of his mission, as the fulfillment of the advent of the promised one, the promised Khadem, and Mullah Hussein Abu Shuri, the recipient of that announcement, that soul-stirring announcement. I wish to call forth briefly the account of some of the salient events that led to the declaration of the Bab to Mullah Hussein Abu Shuri on May 23, 1844. In the mid-19th century, eager anticipations prevailed for the near approach of the advent of the promised one of the age, as had been foretold, prophesied in the scriptures. Among them, the Judaic, Christian, and Islamic sacred texts. In the East, in Iran, among those who fervently and passionately were in search of the promised one of the age was Mullah Hussein Abu Shuri. In obedience to the parting words of his teacher, Sayyid Kazem Rashti, the Sheikhi leader, that his disciples go out into the world in search of the Lord of the age, Mullah Hussein, together with a number of Sayyid Kazem's students, kept vigil for 40 days. Next, they set out to find the promised one of the age. Mullah Hussein eagerly set out in search of the object of his quest. He took a boat to Bushehr on the Persian Gulf. When in Bushehr, he was drawn as by a magnet toward the city of Shiraz, crossing the foreboding mountain pass of Allahu Akbar. Fatigued and weary, he arrived in Shiraz few hours before the sunset of May 22nd, 1844. Mullah Hussein continued to walk and ponder outside the gate of the city of Shiraz. He came face to face with a youth of striking appearance. Mullah Hussein describes him as a youth of radiant countenance who wore a green turban, thus signifying him as a Sayyid, descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. Mullah Hussein recounts that the youth advanced towards him, greeting him with a smile and loving welcome. The youth extended to Mullah Hussein an invitation to his home in order to refresh himself after the fatigue of his journey. Mullah Hussein followed the youth. They passed through streets, alleys, and passageways until they reached the modest residence of the youth. The youth invited Mullah Hussein to enter therein. As the youth crossed the threshold of that house, he motioned Mullah Hussein to follow him, welcoming Mullah Hussein with these words, "Enter therein in peace secure." Taking this as a good omen, Mullah Hussein entered therein. This was the first house that Mullah Hussein entered in Shiraz. They took the stairs leading to that upper chamber of the house of the Bab. Through the doors, they entered into that blessed and sanctified chamber, which was to become the setting of that momentous announcement. This luminous upper chamber of the residence of the Bab, a chamber which will forever remain etched in one's consciousness. The host received Mullah Hussein with utmost care, hospitality, and loving kindness. He remained closeted alone with his guest within the sanctified chamber. This luminous chamber was the setting of a weighty and profound conversation between Mullah Hussein and his host, a conversation that lasted throughout the night and on to the hour of the dawn of the next day. Mullah Hussein has left for posterity an awe-inspiring account of that which transpired therein, in that splendid surrounding. That night, the Bab began to write in presence of Mullah Hussein, the commentary on the Surah of Joseph, Qayyum al-Asma. The declaration of the Bab on that night fulfilled Mullah Hussein's quest. The declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, the fulfillment of Mullah Hussein's quest. The account of that declaration remains for posterity through the soul-stirring expressions of Mullah Hussein, who at long last had found the fulfillment of his quest for the promised Khadem in the person of his host, the Bab. Mullah Hussein relates, I sat spellbound by his utterance. All the delights, all the ineffable glories which the Almighty had recounted in his book as the priceless possessions of the people of paradise, these I seemed to be experiencing that night. Methinks I was in a place of which it could be truly said, therein no toil shall reach us, and therein no weariness shall touch us. The Bab addressed Mullah Hussein with these words, this night, this very hour, will in the days to come be celebrated as one of the greatest and most significant of all festivals. Render thanks to God for having graciously assisted you to attain your heart's desire. Well is it with them that attain thereunto. The declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844. Mullah Hussein relates, sleep had departed from me that night. I was enthralled by the music of that voice, which rose and fell as he chanted, now swelling forth as he revealed verses of the Qayyum al-Asma, again acquiring ethereal, subtle harmonies. Mullah Hussein continued as he uttered the prayers he was revealing. At the end of each invocation, he would repeat this verse, far from the glory of thy Lord, the all-glorious, be that which his creatures affirm of him, and peace be upon his messengers, and praise be to God, the Lord of all beings. Sleep had departed from Mullah Hussein that night. At the dawn of the next day, May 23rd, 1844, Mullah Hussein was awakened by the call of the Muazzin, summoning the faithful to their morning prayer. The declaration of that awe-inspiring announcement of the Bab of his mission ushered in the dawn of a new age, what God hath wrought. That awe-inspiring announcement on May 23rd, 1844, in the upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab, in the delightful city of Shiraz, inaugurated the global age. At that time, in the distant continent, North America, a significant event took place. The very first telegraph was transmitted on May 24 by Samuel F.B. Morse over a distance of 38 miles from Washington to Baltimore. This, the very first communication over a distance transmitted by telegraph, signified and signalized the beginning of a new era on planet Earth. That telegraph message bore these words from the Bible, what God hath wrought. The declaration of the Bab, the announcement of the Bab mission in 1844. Declaration of the Bab, the announcement of the Bab's mission fulfilled the prophecies of past religions. 1844 was the anticipated date for the fulfillment of the promised advent based on biblical prophecies, based on 2,300 days prophesied by Daniel through this verse unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Noted in a book published in 1883, Bible Readings for the Home Circle, copyright 1888, Review and Herald, publisher. On page 94 of this book, published in 1888, a fascinating diagram explains the 2,300 days prophesied by Daniel as the date of fulfillment of the promised advent of Jesus Christ. Based on certain calculations, the date 1844 AD was deciphered by several Bible scholars as the year of the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy, as shown through a diagram from that book, Bible Readings for the Home Circle, and reproduced to be shown in the next slide. The year of fulfillment based on 2,300 days prophesied by Daniel. The source of that diagram, again, is Bible Readings for the Home Circle, copyrighted 1888, Review and Herald Publishers. The date of the Advent, 1844, was based on this verse from Daniel. Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Based on research and certain calculations, 1844 is marked on this page of this book as the anticipated date for the fulfillment of the prophecy of 2,300 days of Daniel. Numerous were those throughout the world who awaited the advent of Jesus Christ. Among them, William Miller, American Baptist preacher from 1782 to 1849. He was the leader of the Millerism movement. Miller believed in the imminence of the bodily advent of Jesus Christ. Together with his numerous followers, Miller awaited the advent first in 1843, noting that due to his miscalculation, he had made an error by 1 year. Then, together with his numerous followers, they awaited the advent in 1844 on a mountaintop in Pennsylvania. William Miller had the date 1844 right. However, when the advent did not take place as he had anticipated, that is, in a literal sense, that is, Christ descending on a cloud, he was disappointed. Miller had the right date. He had the dimension of the time right, but not the dimension of space. That fulfillment, the advent, did take place as he had anticipated, not on the American continent. Thus, it was called the Great Disappointment. Indeed, it was the Great Appointment. It took place on May 23rd, 1844, in that hallowed chamber in the city of Shiraz, through the declaration of the Bab to Mullah Hussein Bushri. On that night of the declaration of the Bab, Mullah Hussein was suddenly thrust with the magnitude of that awe-inspiring announcement, the revelation of the Bab. Mullah Hussein testified, "The revelation so suddenly and impetuously thrust upon me came as a thunderbolt, which for a time seemed to have benumbed my faculties. I was blinded by its dazzling splendor and overwhelmed by its crushing force." Mullah Hussein further testified, expressing joy, awe, and wonder at finding the object of his quest. The knowledge of the Bab's revelation galvanized his being. Excitement, joy, wonder stirred the depths of my soul. Predominant among these emotions was a sense of gladness and strength which seemed to have transfigured me. Now, however, the knowledge of his revelation has galvanized my being. Awake, for lo, the morning light has broken. Arise, for his cause is made manifest. The portal of his grace is open wide. Enter therein, O people of the world, for he who is your promised one is coming. On that never to be forgotten night, the Bab addressed Mullah Hussein with these words. O thou who art the first to believe in me, verily I say, I am the Bab, the gate of God. And thou art the Bab al-Bab, the gate to that day. The Bab continued his address to Mullah Hussein regarding the enrollment of his disciples. He called the immortalized term the letters of the living. The enrollment of the letters of the living. 18 souls must, in the beginning, spontaneously and of their own accord, accept me and recognize the truth of my revelation. Unwarned and uninvited, each of these must seek independently to find me. In 40 days, 17 others enrolled as the disciples of the Bab, named the letters of the living. The Bab addressed the letters of the living with these words. O my beloved friends, you are the bearers of the name of God in this day. You have been chosen as the repositories of his mystery. The Bab continued his parting words, his address to the letters of the living, calling forth the words of Jesus Christ addressed to his disciples. The Bab continued, ponder the words of Jesus Christ to his disciples as he sent them forth to propagate the cause of God. Ye are even as the fire which in the darkness of the night has been kindled upon the mountaintop. Let your light shine before the eyes of men, that the people of the earth may through you recognize and be drawn closer to the Heavenly Father, who is the source of purity. You are the spiritual children. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? The Bab continued, you are the witnesses of the dawn of the promised day of God. You are the partakers of the mystic chalice of his revelation. Gird up the loins of endeavor. Purge your hearts of worldly desires, and let angelic virtues be your adorning. Strive that by your words you may bear witness to the truth of these words of God. With such words, the Bab quickened the faith of his disciples and launched them upon their mission. They were galvanized. They were galvanized to action. They were galvanized to action. Galvanized to action by the mandate conferred upon them. They set out. These were the dawn breakers. They scattered far and wide through the provinces of their native land. These were the dawn breakers, galvanized into action by the mandate conferred upon them, launched on their perilous and revolutionizing mission. They scattered far and wide through the provinces of their native land, where with matchless heroism, they resisted the savage onslaught of the forces arrayed against them and immortalized their faith. The declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. what God hath wrought. The call of God is the fountainhead of the surge in creativity. The call of God, when raised, breathed a new life into the body of mankind and infused a new spirit into the whole creation. At this point, I wish to reflect further on this statement, that is the call of God when raised, breathed new life into the body of mankind and infused a new spirit into the whole creation. An insightful analogy may well serve for in-depth reflection. This is the analogy of the significance of the birth of a new star in our physical universe. The birth of a new star in the physical universe. The emergence, the birth of a new star in our physical universe can exert powerful effect on its surroundings. A new star generates around itself a whole new gravitational field, new powerful forces that had not been there before. The birth of such a star in the physical universe generates forces that pull, attract, and generate new conditions and possibilities. This analogy, this metaphor may likewise apply to the emergence, the birth of a new star, a new revelation in the spiritual universe, in the spiritual cosmos. It may be likened to the emergence of the birth of a new star in the physical universe. Such a birth, such an emergence has powerful effects. The emergence of the star of a new revelation introduces powerful forces into creation. It introduces new creativity, possibilities into the world, new forces, new possibilities into our universe, our spiritual universe. On such emergence, these words of Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i Faith, convey inspiration and insights. The onrushing forces so miraculously released through the agency of the two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. Those onrushing forces so miraculously released through two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, have infused new possibilities, new creativity into the world that had not been there before. The onrushing forces, so miraculously released through the agency of two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. The two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, as two stars in the spiritual universe. The revelation of the twin manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, has generated powerful forces. They have infused creativity into the world system, but also the resultant disequilibrium. Those forces have revolutionized man's ordered life, calling forth this powerful statement from Baha'u'llah. The world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. Mankind's ordered life had been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the likes of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. It has induced creativity into the world with its associated turbulence. At this point in this talk, I wish to bring forth the opening of this presentation, the declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, ushered in the dawn of the global age. This statement launched and inspired this presentation That announcement, that declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, was coincident with that first historic communication, symbolized by telegraphic message heralding what God hath wrought. It set in motion a significant process, forces that ever since have been advancing toward globalization, nevertheless associated with turbulence. The declaration of the Bab ushered in a new era on planet Earth for humankind, accompanied with transformation and also associated with turbulence. The declaration, the announcement of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, set in motion a worldwide process. It inaugurated a whole new era on planet Earth, a global age and global consciousness. The announcement of that declaration was accompanied, again to repeat, with a historic communication, telegraphic message, what God hath wrought. The declaration of the Bab ushered in a new era on planet Earth, a process accompanied with transformation, and yes, also with turbulence. It has set in motion forces that have ever since been advancing toward the global age. The advent of the Bab fulfilled the prophecies of the great religions of the world. The declaration of the Bab in 1844 fulfilled the long-awaited prophecies of Islam. The declaration of the Bab in 1844 fulfilled the biblical prophecies on the promised advent of Jesus Christ. Followers of several other great religions of the world have for long awaited the advent of the promised one foretold in their respective sacred scriptures. Among these great religions, the Zoroastrian and the Buddhists have for long awaited the advent of the promised one, as had been foretold in the Zoroastrian and Buddhist sacred scriptures. These prophecies and their fulfillment have been studied, explored, researched, and published through the efforts of several noted scholars. At the conclusion of this presentation, on the declaration of the Bab, May 23rd, 1844, what God hath wrought, I wish to express my appreciation to the viewers of this presentation for the time they invested in listening to and reflecting on this presentation. I wish to extend to them an invitation to investigate and reflect on the principles, history, and claims of the Baha'i Faith, in particular on the fulfillment of the long-awaited prophecies of the great religions of the world through the advent of the Baha'i Faith.